Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our studio here in Ballerup. I'm really pleased to have you online today. And also, good morning to you, Sharuz.
Good morning.
Thanks for making it all the way from Atea, Sweden, down here to Copenhagen today.
Thanks for having me here.
Of course. Today we have a really exciting agenda on the hybrid world we have today. Here at Atea, we're very much aware of the fact that hybrid is the de facto standard. We know that you have stuff on-premise, and we also know that you have stuff in the cloud potentially, but we also know that you want to leverage the cloud where you can, but it can be a hassle. So when we first saw the Azure VMware solution on the market, we saw here is actually a perfect fit to how we can bridge the on-premise world with the cloud world in a very feasible manner. At Atea, we've been working with both Microsoft and VMware for many years. So besides the fact that Azure VMware solution is a service that actually bridges the two realms of on-premise and cloud, it's also a perfect fit for the competences we have in Atea. Because we have many competences within Microsoft, and we have an extensive competences within VMware. So we were pretty much excited when we saw saw an opportunity of actually combining those competences internally and providing great value to our clients. And with that, I'm going to introduce today's speakers and the agenda we have for today. Shortly, I'll pass it on to my colleague from Sweden, Sharuz, who is our internal Azure VMware solution specialist. And he's being accompanied by Dheeraj, a senior black belt from Microsoft that is also a AVS specialist. And Dheeraj is really going to focus on how we can leverage from the services that are within Microsoft on your VMware stack. So basically you have your VMware stack, and Dheeraj are going to focus a lot on how the Microsoft services can provide more value on your VMware stack. Then we have a really exciting speaker from joining us all the way from Italy, Stefano, who's Group CEO from Team System, who's a large ISV provider here in Europe. And finally, myself, I'm a cloud business architect here at Atea. I'm working a lot with our clients throughout in Denmark mainly on the hybrid agenda and how our clients can leverage from the resources both in their data center and in the cloud as well. This is a live event, so by all means, you're very welcome to ask questions as we go along. I have a iPad here. So questions will be coming in to me directly. So by all means, please ask questions when you have them, big or small. And then finally, just a small advertisement as well. The 10th of March, we have a very exciting event as well. We call it Cloud Alpha, where we have some exciting speakers that will talk about the adoption of cloud into their organization as well. You can find the link and the further description at our webpage on that one. With that said, I will kick off today's agenda with handing the microphone to my good colleague Sharuz. Sharuz, will you do us the honor of introducing yourself and your take on Azure VMware solution from a VMware point of view?
Yeah, thank you, Anders. So, good morning, everyone. My name is Sharuz Laiji, and I'm with Atea Group as a principal architect, helping our customers throughout Nordic to refine their hybrid cloud strategy based on business and technical requirements and execute a suitable solution to kickstart their cloud journey. Today, we also have another AVS specialist with us. We also have the pleasure to have him on board all the way when working with Azure VMware solution. So Dheeraj, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Dheeraj, I actually think you're muted, so potentially you can unmute yourself.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Much better.
Hello,
Thank you.
everyone. Good morning. Yeah, I'm Dheeraj Goyal, the technical specialist for Azure VMware solution at Microsoft. I help customers to onboard their cloud journey in a faster and easier way using AVS. And today we are going to tell you more about AVS, how exactly AVS eases the customer's cloud journey. So thank you for having me and welcome to the session.
Yeah. Thanks, Suraj. So Azure VMware Solutions, or AVS, is a native VMware software-defined data center running on dedicated Microsoft Azure bare metal servers. So you basically get VCF stack on the Microsoft Azure infrastructure. In terms of software components, you will get a full SDDC software components on AVS, so you don't need to worry about the licensing for vSphere, vSAN, NSXT, and HCX. This builds a very solid infrastructure for you to extend your data center or even completely migrate your workloads to the public clouds. One thing that was really interesting for me when I started working with AVS was about data center engineers who has trained and experience with VMware. They don't need to go and learn a bunch of new stuff, a bunch of new concepts or software components about public cloud. They're going to use what they use on their daily operations working with AVS. We're going to talk about ease of operation that AVS going to bring to the table. But before that, I want to touch base on one very important topic, and that's lifecycle management and the challenges that most of our customers they have, and AVS solves them. So basically, when we talk with most of our customers throughout Nordics, one of the activities, or one of the activity that they put a lot of time and money into it is the lifecycle management. So they regularly should upgrade softwares, hardware frameworks, and in case of hardware failure, they should replace the component that caused the issue. I'm pretty sure most of you have been involved in these kind of scenarios, and you know how much planning and effort should goes into this task to have a smooth upgrade and updates. But with use of AVS, what is really important is those kind of activities gonna transfer to Microsoft as the cloud provider, and that's very important. And I know, Diraj, you have been also involved in a discussion with a lot of our customers regarding this very important point. So what's your take on this topic?
Yeah, sure, Shahrukh. So yeah, as you correctly mentioned, with AVS, what Microsoft is doing is basically they are taking away all the management and operational overhead from the customer side, right? So the customer do not have to worry about any kind of hardware failures or any hardware refresh. They don't even have to worry about any kind of ESXi host patching or any upgrades to the VMware software components, because all of that will be taken care of by Microsoft at the backend. And the customer just have to manage the VMs, which will run on top of the AVS cluster, right? And it is a good thing because now with AVS, customer can focus more on their core business priorities and worry less about the infrastructure management, right? So they will be able to focus more on what they really want and worry less about the infrastructure management, which Microsoft will take over.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's I would say, one of the main benefits of AVS.
Yeah. So yeah, that's correct. So my take on that also is customer then they can focus on their core business. And even if they work with like data center operations, they can do they can go through the more important stuffs as we spoke. Yeah. So if I just take a closer look at AVS architecture. So on the left side, you see the on-premises data center, and this data center, of course, is based on VMware vSphere. You have ESXi hosts, and you have a Vcenter server. And on the right-hand side, you have Azure VMware Solution, or AVS, and this includes VMware Cloud Foundation Stack, VMware vSphere, vSAN, NSXT, and HCX. And to build up a hybrid setup here, and to build up a hybrid cloud, you can connect your on-prem data center to AVS by using a dedicated express route connection or even site-to-site VPN through internet, and then you can migrate your workloads back and forth from the on-premises private cloud to AVS and public cloud with use of HCX. And to migrate VMs to cloud and getting back, if it's needed, to the on-prem, it wouldn't be easier than doing it with HCX. And while we were working with a lot of our customers, they were so excited, and they found it really interesting how it is easy to use HCX for this migration. We're going to talk more about HCX, and I think that's a very important point. We're going to talk about it later. But what I also want to point out here, and I want to focus, is there are tremendous possibilities for application modernization, and there are so many native services on Azure that when you migrate your workloads to AVS, you have an access to those services. So what I also want to know, Duraj, your point of view and the trend that's going on in the market, especially in the Nordics. So what are the use cases that they can have for the integration between AVS and native services on Azure?
Yeah, exactly, Shahrukh. So I would say that whenever AVS is deployed, it is always deployed with its own dedicated internal express route circuit, which acts as a edge gateway to be able to connect anywhere to any other site, basically, right? So after AVS is deployed, it could be connected to on-prem. As you mentioned, we can use ExpressRoute or VPN or SD-WAN or whatever existing connectivity method customer is using. We can use all the existing connectivity methods to connect between on-prem to AVS. And AVS can also be connected into Azure native environment as well, right? So since the AVS hardware that resides at the backend, it is deployed, or it is in the same Azure data center where we have all the other Azure native services, which gives it a direct access to the native services, right? So as you mentioned, application modernization, it is not just the migration that the solution eases up, it also gives the customer an opportunity to continue with the application modernization. For example, let's say the customer is into containerization and they want to use Kubernetes services or anything. Basically, they can leverage anything into Azure native along with AVS VM. So that is another good point or the benefit of this particular solution.
Yeah, I understand that.
Actually, we already have a question coming in here.
All right.
Exactly. And this also goes out to everybody listening, that by all means, please provide your questions if you have any. And I think the question that we have here is actually, I can see it here on the slide, why the question comes up. When we're talking about a on-premise environment, is the need for NXT, is there a need for NXT, or how is it?
Okay. Yeah, so this is exactly what me and Duraj, we talked with the customers, and this is a common sense, and that customer, they think they should have NSXT. So NSXT is not needed on-prem. If you have NSXT, that would be great. That would be perfect. But you don't need to have NSXT. But you need to have a certain configuration on your network on the vSphere level. So you need to have vSphere distributed switch on premises.
Yeah, exactly. Correct.
Yep. So the answer is no, NSXT is not required, but you need to have vSphere distributed switch on-prem.
Correct.
Yeah, so we talked about the native services, Duraj, and I totally agree with you. But there are other services that when we had discussion and when we worked with our customers, it's also brought up. So the services are storage, SQL, Microsoft SQL, and also backup. So can you give us some more insight regarding those services?
Yeah, sure, Shahrukh. So as I mentioned, in short, I would say that anything that runs into Azure, it can be leveraged along with AVS, but still there are some main use cases or some main services which we see most of the customers using today. One of them being storage. So there are, I would say, two ways to connect storage to the AVS environment. One way is to connect the storage directly to an AVS VM, right? So we can connect the blob storage or Azure File or File Sync directly to an AVS VM, and the use case could be, to use, let's say, a file server, right? So you can deploy a VM in AVS and attach that kind of storage directly to a VM itself, right? So that is one way of doing it. Another way of doing it or attaching storage to the AVS environment is to attach the storage as a data store directly to the AVS cluster, right? So this is a feature which is in preview right now, but it will be GA soon, right? So what we can do is we have a feature called disk pool. So disk pool is actually Azure managed disk at the backend. It is the same disk that we use in the Azure native VMs. So we can simply deploy a disk as a disk pool and attach it as a data store to the AVS cluster, right? So it really decouples the storage from the AVS VMware cluster basically, because most of the customers, they have very storage intensive environments, right? And the storage that comes with AVS may not be just enough for their workloads, right? So now
Exactly.
with disk pool, they can add or remove storage on demand, same way as they would do in their on-prem data center, right? So that is one option that I just mentioned is disk pool. Another way, which is again coming soon, is ANF, right? So most of the Azure users, they probably are aware of ANF, which is Azure NetApp Files, where we run NetApp storage natively in the Azure data center, right? So we can attach ANF storage as well directly to the AVS cluster as a data store. So the customer can place the VMs and VMDK files and everything directly on the data store. So this storage integration is one of the main use cases that we see most of the customers using. Apart from storage, I would like to mention about the database, right? So we have seen customers migrating their full application stacks into AVS, right? And when I say full application stack, it could be multi-tier application, let's say a 3-tier application where the web front end of the application is running in the AVS VM, and let's say it may want to access something in SQL database like Azure PaaS SQL, right? So that is an absolutely possible scenario because, as I said, AVS can leverage everything into Azure native using its own internal dedicated circuit, and this is the scenario that we see most of the customers using, right? So storage, database, and another important use case that we see from most of the customers is backup actually. So once the customer has migrated their applications and workloads into AVS, they would like to kind of make it into daily operations and so on, and backup is of course an important part over there. So what customers can do, and we have seen most of the customers using that today, they can use Azure native backup to back up the AVS VMs directly. So all they have to do is just deploy a VM, which will act as a AVS management appliance basically. So the VM will be deployed in Azure native, and it will act as an intermediary between the recovery vault and AVS environment. So customers can use the native backup services along with the AVS environment. So these are the main use cases that we see most of the customers using today, but these are not the only use cases. These are only the main ones that I wanted to highlight.
Yeah, I understand that.
Apart from that, yeah, as I said, everything that runs in runs in Azure, it can be leveraged along with AVS.
All right. Yeah. Thank you, Duraj. So if we look closer to the software configuration and hardware configuration on AVS, and with this, I don't want to bore you because I promised Anders here that I'm not going to go too deep on the technical details, and I just want to keep it on the surface. But I would say this is very important and crucial to point out. So, as I mentioned before, on the software side, when you get AVS, you have access to VMware vSphere, and to be exact, VMware vSphere 6.7 update 3 for now, vSAN 6.7 Enterprise, and NSXT 3.1 Advanced, and also HCX 4.3 Advanced, and in case we need that, and we're going to discuss about that later in this session, we can also get HCX Enterprise license. So this is the licensing part. You don't need to worry about the licenses on the nodes that you're going to use on AVS. About the hardware specification and hardware configuration, you have physical servers, bare metal servers, dual processors, and in total they're going to have 36 cores, and that's why we call those nodes AV36. Each server going to have 576 gigabyte of memory. It's going to be 10 SSD disks distributed into 2 disk groups for vSAN, and it's going to be all-flash vSAN. And in terms of networking, every server has 425 gigabit Ethernet network adapters that connects it to the top-of-rack switches. Because of vSAN, we need minimum of 3 nodes. So if you want to start consuming AVS, you need to start with at least 3 nodes per cluster. The cluster can expand up to 16 nodes. And if you need a further expansion, you can go up to 96 nodes per AVS SDDC. In terms of billing, we can choose between 3 options. We can choose with pay-as-you-go, 1 year or 3 years reserve instance. If you use 1 year reserve instance, you're going to get 34% discount. And if you use 3 years reserve instance, you're going to get around 53% of discount. And one other question that we usually get is about these reserved instances that customer can use, and it is also exchangeable with the native services of Azure.
Just a comment here, because I think even though that you promised me not to go that much into the technical details on this matter, I think this became a bit too technical to me, at least for me at least. But I was just wondering, just to clarify, but the hardware stuff is not something that our clients need to consider or basically think about anymore. This is something that runs on that Microsoft handles for us, right?
Yeah, exactly. So we're gonna go into the what we call responsibility matrix in very short, and we're gonna see exactly where customers are responsible and when Microsoft responsible for the maintenance. So I would say the main thing is the sizing, how much memory, how much disks, how much processing power you need to have in place. So for example, if you go to minimum of 3 nodes per cluster, you get about 82 gigahertz, of processing power, around 1.7 terabytes of memory, and more than 46 terabytes of raw disk space. So what we talk about is basically having capacity management and capacity planning with our customers.
Okay.
Yeah.
So as Anders also asked about it, and I really appreciate you talk about this thing, because I know you're also talking about customers and you know their concern. As I mentioned before, one of the good things that we are usually talking with the customers is amount of operations that you're going to offload from your internal IT team to Microsoft. And as you can see on the screen, most of the deployment and management going to be offloaded to Microsoft, and Microsoft is on the hook. Regarding the configuration, the low-end and hardware-related configuration is also basically on Microsoft to handle. But in terms of high-end software configuration that you would need to put into place, is a customer that going to do that, and which I think is a good thing, gives us flexibility. But I would say you can, as a customer, you can focus more on the more important application-related stuff that you're going to do inside your guest virtual machines and guest workloads.
And on that note, actually, also, I'm just come to think of here, because now we're introducing a new environment for the client in terms of Azure potentially, and but at the same time they have their data center as well. So I'm just thinking, and this maybe goes to you, Jiraj. I'm just thinking, isn't there any kind of good manners or easy way to manage those hybrid environments from a native point of view? So basically, you have your data center. Now you also have Azure. Potentially, you have other cloud providers. Who knows? So what opportunities are there to actually manage that from a feasible point of view?
So from the, I would say, hybrid management perspective, I would say there is a very good or a nice thing which is coming up, which is actually called Arc, right? So we are integrating Arc with AVS, and when that happens, customers will be able to manage their AVS VMware environment and their Azure environment directly into the Azure portal. So that will really ease up the environment from the management perspective for the customers, right? So that is something which is coming soon.
It is in preview right now. Is that correct?
It is in
Raj?
preview right now. Correct.
All
Yes,
right.
that is in preview right now. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
That sounds great.
Yeah, thank you. So we talked about VMware HCX. And as I said, when I start working with AVS and when we just start working with customers and we deployed AVS in the customer environment and they start using AVS, one of the most interesting part was a piece of software that is included in the AVS, which is called VMware HCX. And HCX is, I would say, a brilliant software that would give you the possibility to run multi-cloud migration of workloads. Beside the migration, what HCX does for us is it can extend the layer 2 network from your on-premises to the cloud, and it can do a lot of other stuff, but it would be much easy and handy for you as a customer to migrate your workloads between on-prem and your AVS. So I know, Diraj, you have also worked, and we also had joint cases about this together with customer. So if you want to summarize and if you want to cut to the chase what AVS could do and bring out to the table about migration, what would you say?
Yeah, sure. So HCX is actually a native VMware tool that is included in the AVS cost, right? So HCX stands for Hybrid Cloud Extension, and this is actually the tool that differentiates AVS from the other traditional migration methods, right? So a customer might be thinking, when exactly should I use AVS? And when exactly should I prefer it over other migration methods, right? So as you correctly mentioned, what HCX does is it gives the customer the ability to extend or stretch the L2 network from on-prem data center into AVS, so that when they migrate the VMs, they don't need to change the IP address. That is one. And second is that the migration is 100% seamless. There is no downtime involved. You can literally just do a vMotion from your on-prem vCenter to the AVS vCenter, same way as anyone would do a vMotion from one host to another host within the on-prem data center. So that is a very nice capability, and it really takes away all the complexity from the migration process, right? Because the customer do not have to change anything into the application architecture or network architecture. Everything just remains as is, and they can simply lift and shift everything from their on-prem data center into AVS. So this is the unique capability that differentiates AVS from the other traditional migration methods, and HCX is the tool that I would say facilitates this particular capability. Now I would like to add a little bit more about HCX. So when we talk about HCX, there are two versions of HCX: HCX Advanced and HCX Enterprise. So this live vMotion capability and bulk migration capability, it comes with HCX Advanced version. And good thing is that the higher version, which is HCX Enterprise, that is also available at no cost with AVS as well, right? And the additional benefit that HCX Enterprise will give is a couple of additional migration methods. One of them called RAV, Replication Assisted vMotion, where you can have multiple parallel migrations without any downtime at all, right? So you can, for example, if there is a customer who wants to migrate into the cloud as soon as possible. We have a lot of customer who comes to us saying our data center hosting contract is coming to an end in next 3 months, and we have thousands of VM to migrate. What should we do, right? So this is where AVS or HCX comes to rescue. You can simply use HCX or RAV and do multiple parallel migrations without any downtime from your on-prem data center into the cloud, right? So RAV is one capability that comes with HCX Enterprise. Second capability or second migration type that comes with HCX Enterprise is called OSAM, OS Assisted Migration. And it is actually used to migrate non-VMware workloads into the cloud directly. For example, if you have anything running on Hyper-V or KVM or those kind of workloads, you can use OSM, which will actually deploy an agent into the operating system, and you will be able to migrate those VMs as well directly into cloud, right? So there are multiple benefits or multiple types of migrations which are available with AVS. And then on top of it, it also gives you the ability to create mobility groups and the mobility optimized networking, which also enhances the migration experience, right? So mobility group is where you can create the groups based on the applications, and then monitor them as a single entity. And so from the monitoring perspective, from the migration perspective, it gives you additional benefits. And then mobility optimized networking is a feature that optimizes the routing between on-prem and AVS after the migration. So in short, I would say HCX is the tool that makes the customer's hybrid environment possible, basically, right? And it gives
That's
you the
correct.
migration capability in both directions. So you can not only migrate from on-prem to cloud, you can also migrate back from cloud to on-prem as well without any downtime at all, right?
And that
So
is a very
that's
important
why.
point that you mentioned, that you
Exactly,
can easily
correct.
also bring back your workloads from the cloud, from the AVS, if you think you need to
Exactly.
do that back to the on-prem.
Correct.
Actually, guys,
correct. Yes.
we actually have quite a few questions coming in here, and
Sure.
there
Yeah.
apparently were a bottleneck in the questionnaire, so I've just received them now. So we're just going to do a couple of questions, so we can
Sure.
clear up the queue that are of questions, and sorry about that.
No problem.
First and foremost, there is a question about whether we're going to be covering cost and cost scenarios and cost structure and that, and I think we are going to cover that when Stefano is coming online later this event. He's going to be talking very extensively into the business case from Team Systems and how they were actually driving this from a financial point of view. So Stefano will be coming more into the cost and the cost structure of this. I can just briefly touch upon it that. Yeah, obviously there is a cost in Microsoft in Azure for driving this. There is obviously also some migration cost in terms of moving your resources from your VMware environment to Azure. I can just add from a Atea point of view, due to our partner status with Microsoft, we actually have some very interesting funding opportunities that actually helps our clients to move the workloads to Azure with funding from Microsoft. But we will be covering more on the costs later on, as mentioned. And then we actually have a pretty interesting question here. I hope you can answer this one, Diraj. It's a tricky one,
Sure.
so bear with me here.
Yeah.
So say there is a scenario where we actually have other hyperscalers out there that are providing this type of solution here. With your words, from a Microsoft point of view, why should we go with Microsoft on this type of solution?
Okay. So yeah, and I actually have a slide just to cover those points. Yeah. So basically, there are few points, or there are few benefits. If you move on to the next slide, please, Charles. Let's quickly.
Yep.
One more next, please.
One more.
Yeah, this one. Correct. So yeah, we can probably cover the previous slide later. Let us first cover the question, and that
Yeah,
will
sure.
actually cover
Yeah,
this
of
slide
course.
as well,
Yeah.
right? So yes, of course, when we talk about VMware on other hyperscalers, of course, from the VMware standpoint, they are mostly the same, right? But the difference comes into the long-term strategy of the customer. So there are, of course, benefits with AVS which are available only with AVS, and they are not available with the other VMware hyperscalers, right? One of them, I would say very important, is the ESU, Extended Security Updates for 2008, Windows 2008 and SQL 2008. So you might be aware that Windows 2008 and SQL 2008, they are end of life already. And if the customer keeps on running these workloads in the on-prem data center, they will end up paying around 75% of the license cost, which is actually huge, right? But if they move these workloads into AVS, they will be entitled for 4 years of free extended security updates. So that is a very good cost saving if the customer is running large number of Windows 2008 servers, and soon 2012 Windows Server 2012 and SQL 2012, that will also come into this category, because 2012 is also going to be end of life soon, right? So this extended security updates, it is a good and huge cost saving, and it is available only on AVS, only with VMware on Azure, not on other VMware hyperscalers, right? So that is one. Second is what we call AHub, Azure Hybrid Benefit, where customer can port or use the same existing data center license into AVS, right? So for example, if the customer is using a data center license with software assurance in their on-prem data center, they can use the same license to run unlimited Windows virtualization in AVS as well, right? So that is another benefit that comes with only AVS. So that is from the business perspective. There are some benefits from the operations perspective as well. So the AVS environment is very well integrated into the Azure portal directly, as I briefly mentioned about Arc. So using Arc, you will have a single pane of glass or a single pane for management for your Azure native VMs, for your on-prem, as well as your AVS VMware environments, right? So from the operations perspective, it is very easy. Most of the things like scaling up and connectivity and everything else, these are all self-service in the Azure portal. So from the operations perspective, it is very, very easy. All the logs and everything, they are all directly available in the Azure portal. So from the business perspective, there are some unique benefits. From the operations perspective, there are some unique benefits. And from the developer perspective, as I already mentioned about the integration between AVS and Azure native, we can leverage anything into Azure along with AVS, right? So these are the unique benefits which are available only with AVS and not with any other VMware hyperscalers, I would say.
Okay, thank you, Diraj. Now, I'm also thinking here that it also comes to a point of what competencies you potentially have in-house, right? So I guess you obviously would potentially have some VMware competencies, and if you also have some Microsoft competencies, then it makes you can leverage on the competencies you already have, I guess.
Exactly. Okay. Correct. Yes, that's right.
And there's actually more as well. This is also a good one. I don't know whether it's for you, Sharuz, or for you, Diraj. So I'm just going to read it out loud here so I get all the details here. So AVS hardware specifications, is that sort of generic hardware? Is it possible to, for instance, get a high-end GPU capacity for your AVS environment? For instance, if you have some demanding operations where you would need those GPU power. I don't know if any of you can answer that question.
I can probably, I can take that question. So yes, so I would say the answer is yes and no. Right now, the details that Sharuz mentioned, we have only one SKU available today, which is called AV36, which has 36 CPU cores, 576 gigs of memory, and around 16 terabytes of raw storage in one node. And then we are coming up soon with the heavier SKU as well, which will have much more, I would say almost 3 times more memory and storage and CPU as well. So that is something which will come in near future that is not available today. And unfortunately, we don't have the capability to add GPUs or something specific as of today, although these things are on the roadmap and they will be available soon.
Yeah. One thing I can add to what Diraj mentioned is we also have a discussion with our customers that they need some amount of capacity for processing power and memory. But on the disk side, they need more resources. So they wouldn't like to get a new node just to get more storage capacity. So that is something that came to my mind when you asked this. So with the features that Diraj mentioned, that you can add a disk pool. So this is something that would be possible. So you can have 3 nodes and you can just upgrade the storage side.
Okay.
Yeah, correct.
And we'll just have one more, and then we'll come back to some questions later on because there keep coming questions in here. One question here is there a possibility to put AVS-hosted Vcenter in enhanced link mode with the on-premise instances?
Yes.
Yep, I can take that question.
Yeah, sure.
So that's a good question. And I would say this enhanced link mode is something which is on the roadmap right now. So this thing is not available right now. So we cannot put AVS vCenter into the link mode with the on-prem data center. However, as I said, the preference from Microsoft side is to use Arc, which will give you, the more or less the same capability. So the purpose of having enhanced link mode is to have a single pane of glass or a single pane of management for your on-prem VMs and your AVS VMs. And that is exactly what Arc will provide you, right? So Arc is something which is available today in preview, but this enhanced link mode is also in, I would say, on the roadmap, and it will be available in next few months.
Okay, great. And just a comment out there: keep putting in those questions. It's really what makes this live session interesting, where we have these questions. So by all means, keep putting in your questions. I actually just got one more. It's also pretty interesting. I think I know the answer for this one, but I will still provide it for you guys. So the question goes, and I'm just going to quote it here. I have quite a significant amount of skilled people in my team today already running VMware in my VMware environment today. What is their role in all of this? What are they going to do when we transfer these VMware resources into Azure VMware solution?
Yeah, so basically, I can take that question. What we have experienced with other customers when they have enough VMware competencies and resources in-house. So when they are moving towards using AVS and using the VCF stack, so their role going to be, I would say, more crucial and more critical, those people who are skilled, because the migration and configuration that you would need to put on the AVS part and also on the on-prem part would be more critical. So those people, I would say, they're gonna have a critical role, but at the same time, they would be free of less important activities, I would say. So they can focus on the more important activities. Okay. Do you have something to add, Dheeraj?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree what you mentioned, Shahruz, but as you correctly mentioned, so AVS is a native VMware environment, right? So It is not that we are moving the people from VMware to Azure. In fact, once your AVS environment is deployed, the customer do not even need to log into the Azure portal at all. They can directly log into the AVS vCenter and manage it directly from there, same way as they were managing before, right? So the VMware guys who were working on the environment before, they will continue to work on it, and they can also leverage to use their existing tools and technologies. For example, if they are using some vRealize suite products like VROps for monitoring, or vRealize network insights or automation or something, they can continue to use those tools along with AVS as well. So it is not that the role or importance of the VMware guys is gone. They can continue to leverage the VMware skill set along with AVS, and that is another good thing about AVS, that customer can continue to leverage their existing VMware skill set.
For sure.
Great. Okay, guys. So time is running. Time is flying here. So we have a couple more minutes left before we need to pass on. So I don't know how you wish to wrap this up.
Yep. Yeah, so I think we have covered all the slides. We're gonna cover them like pretty quick, so we're gonna be on time. And I think I'm gonna turn this back to you, Dheeraj, regarding the use cases.
Yes, of course. So as we talked about HCX, which actually makes your migration process very, very easy and fast, right? And the use cases are very much connected to that particular thing, basically. So the main use case that we see out there with most of the customers is data center migration and data center extension, right? So the customer may want to just exit out of their on-prem data center as soon as possible. So they can simply use AVS, connect it to their on-prem, use HCX to just move everything as is to AVS, and then just get rid of the on-prem data center. So that is data center migration. Data center extension is similar to data center migration, where the customer will just continue to run some of their stuff into the on-prem data center, and then when they want to have more capacity, instead of adding more capacity in the on-prem data center, they can consider AVS as an extended arm of their on-prem data center, right? So these are the main use cases. Yes, you want to add something?
Yeah, actually, just a question from my side here, because when I'm talking to the clients out there, they, it is. We have quite a challenge right now out there, and that's delivery times. So you want to order some new storage or new disks and whatever, and delivery times is an issue.
Yeah, and exactly.
How are Microsoft's delivery times on this?
Yeah, exactly. I would say that delivery time is something that the customer do not have to worry at all anymore, right? Because with AVS, we have enough hardware already racked and stacked into the data center. And I would say the deployment of hardware into the AVS cluster or into the AVS private cloud is just one click away. And in terms of timeline, I would like to specify that as well. The deployment of a 3-node fully functional cluster will take around 3 to 4 hours of time. And then adding a node or removing a node will take just 20 to 30 minutes of time, right? So of course, it is very, very fast. Same thing will take, weeks or even months into the on-prem data center. So from the delivery timeline perspective, AVS is very, very fast.
Okay, great. Okay, yeah, sorry, carry on. It was just out of my curiosity here.
Yeah, sure, no problem. So coming back to the use cases, as I said, data center migration and data center extension. Another one, we briefly discussed that already, application modernization. As I mentioned, that AVS could be connected into anything into Azure native. So, customer can continue to modernize. They can continue to use, let's say, if they are into containerization, they can connect AVS environment to the Kubernetes or anything basically into Azure native, right? So the customer can use AVS as the application modernization as well in a faster way. Virtual desktop. So some of the customers are using AVS for their VDI environments as well. And the major VDI vendors, which are VMware Horizon and Citrix, they are both very well supported on AVS. So you can run your Horizon and Citrix into AVS. So that is one another good thing. Disaster recovery is also a point which we will discuss a little bit in more detail in the upcoming slides. But for example, the customer do not want to migrate anything into the cloud, and that is absolutely fine. Since AVS is a native VMware environment, they can consider AVS just as a DR site as well, right? So you can continue to run everything in the on-prem data center and consider AVS just as a DR site. So these are the main use cases that we see from most of the customers out there.
I actually have there's just a question coming in here, Diraj,
Yeah,
and
sure.
I guess it touched upon the data center extension point to some extent here, but it's with a negative sound, so to speak. Because what if you're looking into data center consolidation? So imagine that you have, let's say, 20 data centers out there, and you want to consolidate. How do you see AVS as a leverager for that? And what is the use case in that particular case?
I would say data center consolidation is, little bit similar to data center extension. So what customer can do is, for example, let me take your example. Let's say a customer is having 20 small sites and they just want to merge them or consolidate them into maybe one or two AVS sites, right? So what they can do is HCX gives you multi-site connectivity. Multi-site connectivity in the sense, with HCX Advanced, you can connect 3 sites. So you can connect like many to one. Multiple on-prem sites could be connected to one AVS site. And then HCX Enterprise gives you the ability to connect up to 10 sites, right? So depending on how many sites you want to connect, you can connect multiple on-prem sites at the same time to the same AVS environment, and you can then, of course, consolidate. You can continue to migrate from the smaller sites into AVS, and then just let go of the sites. That way, you will be able to consolidate the larger number of sites into less sites, basically.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I think we spoke about the AVS differentiation, Diraj.
Yes.
And if we move on, then I think we have the global availability.
Yes. Okay, so in terms of AVS global availability, I would say we have the most comprehensive coverage in the world today. I mean, if I simply compare it to the other VMware hyperscalers. So AVS is right now available in 20 regions globally out of around 60 Azure data centers. So it is available in 9 regions in US, 6 regions in Europe, and 5 regions in APAC. And it is continuously growing. So these are the regions where the service is available right now. And we are adding more and more regions depending on the customer demand and so on.
Yeah, exactly. So one thing I also want to mention, I also want to point out is about backup and disaster recovery. And as you know, backup and disaster recovery is an integral part of every IT strategy, and it should be in place. And as we mentioned, Diraj mentioned, and I have also mentioned, AVS is a native VMware solution. So you have your vCenter servers and everything is pretty much the same as you have on-prem. So what you can do, you can continue using your current backup solution. For example, if you're using Commvault or Veeam or NetBackup, you can also use them as you are using. Or if you think there is other vendors and there are other solutions like Rubrik or Cohesity that might give you better options, you can also you have the option to switch to the other vendors that are supported. But as we also discussed, Microsoft recommends the Microsoft Azure backup as a solution for AVS, but it's not something that you have to do it. You can just choose what supported solution you want to choose. Regarding the disaster recovery, as you might know, you can use VMware Site Recovery Manager or SRM natively. It is supported by AVS, and you can use that orchestration technology to run your DR plans. There are also other third-party solutions like Jetstream and Zerto, which are supported. I think Diraj touched upon this point when he talked about HCX, but I just want to emphasize more. When we talk about HCX, we usually talk about migration, and the second thing would be that network L2 extension. But at the same time, what HCX can do for you can protect your virtual machines to the AVS. So you can use HCX2, and also Azure Site Recovery or ASR is also supported for the disaster recovery option. So in terms of backup and disaster recovery, we have a comprehensive coverage of supported solution that we can use on AVS.
Exactly. Yeah.
If you decide to start using AVS, you should have couple of components in place, up and running and ready to go. So first one is you need to have an Azure subscription. That subscription could be an enterprise agreement or a CSP subscription. You need to raise an SR to get the nodes allocated to you. You obviously need an Azure resource group. So you could logically group all the components that are related to the AVS. And you need to have an account with the contributor access to that subscription that we mentioned. Most of the prep goes, I would say, to the networking side. You need to have some networking components or networking elements, I would say, ready and in place. And basically, if I just want to keep it very general, you need a CIDR range of IP addresses that could be used to allocate to the services and ESXi hosts and other components on the AVS site.
So what you're saying is that, in short, they should basically just call you, right?
Yeah, of course. So I would say we have been down this road with many customers, and we know the drill, we know the gotchas, we know where we should configure an extra options or what is the best practices. And as you mentioned in the beginning, Atea has a tremendous amount of competences throughout Nordics in terms of VMware, in terms of Microsoft Azure. And we also have, at the same time, support of Microsoft with us. So, for example, someone like Diraj, who is a member of an elite group at Microsoft called Global Black Belt Team, is always with us. And I would also be with the customers trying to run that. And as I said, we don't have any issue regarding the competences.
Yeah.
And if we want to wrap it up, Diraj, what would you say about the key takeaways?
Yes, of course. So if I have to summarize AVS in just one slide, we probably just have to look at the last slide that we have, right? So I would say that customers have been using VMware since long time. They have been using Microsoft since long time. And AVS is, we can say, is the best of both worlds, right? So with AVS, customer will get, the familiar tools and technology of VMware, along with flexibility and, additional benefits of Microsoft Azure, right? I would like to highlight the main benefits here. One of them being zero refactoring. Again, coming back to HCX, which gives you the ability to stress your network, and then you really do not need to make any changes at all to your application and network architecture. And sometimes, the application owners will not even realize that the server has been or the application has been migrated into the cloud, right? It is really that easy. So zero refactoring is the main benefit of AVS that differentiates it from the other traditional migration methods. And then existing skills, as you mentioned in the beginning, that AVS is a native VMware environment, so the customer can continue to leverage their existing VMware skills as well as their existing VMware tools, basically, right? So the customer can continue to leverage their existing VMware skill set and everything. So these are the two benefits. And third one is around the business aspect, which is cloud economics. And there are actually multiple aspects, as we discussed about the ESU, extended security updates, AHub, Azure Hybrid Use benefit. And then one more thing that I would like to highlight is the exchangeability of RIs, basically, right? So as you mentioned, when we were discussing the configuration of the hardware and software specifications, the RI that the customer will purchase, first of all, it will give the customer a very high discount. There is 34% discount with 1 year RI, and there is 53% discount on 3 year RI. And good thing about these RIs is that these RIs are exchangeable. And exchangeable means, for example, let's say a customer purchases a 10 node cluster today, and then they are able to modernize in next just 6 months, and they want to reduce the number of nodes during the period of the RI, right? The good thing is that they can actually do that. So they can simply let go of their AVS nodes and purchase anything into Azure native. So this is a very nice flexibility that we are providing to the customers, and this will help them in their modernization journey, basically.
So basically what you say, if a customer comes in and get AVS, for example, reserve instance for 3 years and get 53% of discount. And then along the road, after a year or two, when they decided, we want to modernize our application, they can reduce the nodes, and the money that they have committed to pay is not going to go to waste. So they can use it on the native services. So, for example, on the infrastructure as a services or PaaS services.
Exactly. And that is actually a really good, flexibility, because I have seen customers, just purchasing 3 year RI for their AVS nodes, and then during their modernization journey, they will migrate into native VMs or maybe AKS, Azure Kubernetes Services. So they can simply use the same amount of money of the AVS nodes to purchase anything into native Azure like AKS or native Azure VMs. So this is a very nice flexibility, and it will definitely help the customers in their modernization journey without any, loss of money which they have paid already.
Okay. And I think with that note, Dhiraj, I think we're gonna wrap this session up. For me at least, I hope everyone listening in have enjoyed it just as much as I have. Personally, I can feel your enthusiasm about this solution, so that's very nice for me to hear. Dhiraj, thank you for taking the time and joining us this morning.
Sure.
I wish you a very pleasant day, and thanks for calling up. And
my pleasure. Thank you.
And Shiruz, also thanks for joining this morning here in the studio in Ballerup. It was a pleasure having you here.
Yeah, same here. Happy to help.
Great, thank you. And with that note, we're gonna have a short teaser on what we call Atea Cloud Track. It's basically Atea's interpretation of how you go to the cloud. And after that short message, we will be back with Stefano from Team Systems.
De mest holdbare og værdiskabende forandringer kommer indfra. Så din cloud-rejse skal være baseret på et oprigtigt ønske om at transformere din virksomhed digitalt. Cloud-tjenester er en vigtig brik i ønsket om at spare tid og omkostninger, samtidig med, at det giver adgang til de tekniske fordele, som kan skabe et virkelig digitalt og konkurrencedygtigt Danmark. One size fits all eksisterer ikke, når det drejer sig om cloud. Det ved vi, fordi vi hver dag hjælper kunder i alle størrelser og alle brancher i skyen. Men som et af Danmarks stærkeste kompetencehuse inden for cloud, vil vi mere end det. Og med Cloud Track har vi sat struktur på cloud-rejsen og inddelt den i 8 faser. Vi har sat struktur på cloud, så I får en større sikkerhed for, at I får det forretningsmæssige output, I ønsker. Både i jeres rejse til skyen og bagefter som living in cloud. Uanset hvor langt du er med cloud, så er vi klar til jer.
Welcome back, everybody, and I hope you're still with us this morning. Now we are going to shift gear. We are going to take a more in-depth look on this solution from a business point of view, where Girard and Shirouz, we've just been talking to, they've been focusing very much on the technical part, even though they promised me that they would keep it on a high level. They went too deep sometimes, I think. But I know for now that Stefano, CEO from Team Systems, he promised me that he will be looking more into AVS from a business point of view. So, Stefano, would you do us the honor of introducing yourself and your experience with AVS and the process of taking a decision into why this was the proper choice for your organization?
Yes, thank you to all, and thank you for joining this meeting. And it's very interesting from my side now to switch on the business perspective, due to the fact that usually I am the technical perspective in the company, but considering how deep we had the chance to go in the first part, it's very useful, I think, for the people that is looking at this meeting to go into which was our journey. I think we can go through the slide to introduce the company that I represent right now, and even the journey that we made. Okay, two words about me. I'm Stefano Liguori, and I've been now I'm CIO of Team System. Previously, I had the chance to have the same role in British Telecom, and previously in different roles in Vodafone, Capgemini, and fashion industry like Emerging Dogenia. So the approach to this speech is very try to have the different perspective on this kind of solution. Team System is 40 years in the business, is one of the major ISV in Italy. You consider that we switch in Italy as a law in the electronic invoices obliged for the professional people and for the enterprises since 3 years. And nowadays, 1/3 of the total electronic invoices made in Italy as running in our system, as managed in our system in Team System. You saw the numbers, almost 2 million of customers, more than 400 million of revenues, and more than 2,000 of employees. We have different solutions. I just want to add a very important thing, that Team System is even a premium partner of the national football team. That's why I think we even won the last European Championship. So starting from that, I think we can move on. We can go in the other slide. Our challenge is when I started working in Team System 3 years ago, more or less, I saw the situation for the infrastructure as a service that we managed, and thousands of customers were based on our data center. So I know that there is a path where we have a lot of problem to manage as an IT manager. I know that one of our best problem, if you want to call this way, is in managing this kind of infrastructure and providing the correct services to our customer in a world that it's a very fast moving ahead. So I start to talk with my CEO and even my CFO regarding this infrastructure, and starting from a point that they were very sensitive. So how we can be more profitable on this kind of infrastructure, and how we can stay relevant and innovate our infrastructure in the time, and even our application and modernization, our data center. You see the main point that I had to focus with them, and you know that usually this kind of speech to the CFO, CEO needs to be very pragmatic, because we know that there are a lot of costs that are not so easy to export to them. So how the effort of our IT teams is made on this kind of infrastructure, how we need to have a monitoring always on in order to understand if we are we need to have more server, more storage, and the network configuration, and so on and so forth. So these are the parts that maybe are more difficult to explain to them, and to have a single point or a single truth on that. So we need to focus on a very pragmatic way. So I start to fill an Excel, let me say, where I add to all the costs. So the infrastructure cost, the licenses cost, the backup storage, the firewalling, the traffic, and so on and so forth. We can move on, and we saw our option on the table. So how we can go to sell out our data center, migrate to public cloud, or partner with local private cloud. At the same time, on the other aspect, so in the innovation and stay relevant, we can build a new platform, extending our data center or re-architect solution for public cloud. So this option, as you can consider, is the one that we need to face when we want to move on our business. And what we can move to the next slide, the solution that perfectly meet our question was get rid of our own infrastructure and leverage on public cloud. But which public cloud we need to move, how to handle the apps, and how to do it without interrupting business, considering that on this kind of infrastructure, Team System manage more than 3,000 customers. So it's an impact that we cannot face with an interruption of our business. The other 2 points are that our solution was based on Windows Server and SQL Server, and we had a heavy use of VMware solution. This means what you already saw even in the previous part of this meeting. Internal skill of the company that are very focused on these two parts, so the Windows and the VMware. We can move on that. But what we are talking about, this kind of numbers that are very huge numbers if you consider even the impact on our customer. So it's not a small infrastructure. So this reality check, as we call it, is something that we are not doing on a small portion of our business. We can move on even on next slide. Okay, so at the end, the solution was based on Microsoft Azure VMware. Why that? I think that the answer is even in the question, because the part of Microsoft application, the people within the company was very skilled on Microsoft application. We had a lot of Windows Server and SQL Server infrastructure, and we need to continue our business without interruption to our customer. I mentioned more time this part because in our path, looking on the market and the kind of solution that the market provides, there are many very lot of solution on public cloud, and even a lot of solution if you have the possibility to transform your application and modernize your application. But this kind of solution meets the requirement, considering even the aspect of internal people, that it was a strong point. Some of you asked about the business case. For sure, you can in the following slide we will look at the business case. Even mention maybe the order of I would like to mention the order of magnitude. Know very well that it will change for case to case, but just to let you know that it's a number that is an important number for us, and even the fact that the impact on licenses and reskilling people is not something that is transferable. So this is why it's important to have this kind of speech with you, because it's the path that we had to do when we choose this kind of a solution. In next slide, we will see at the architecture, but I think we can move on quite fast on this because it's something that you already that our colleague already mentioned. But you see on the left the part of the data center where we start, and the solution based on with the front end and back end based on Azure VMware solution. This kind of architecture. Let me say, I'm watching this kind of architecture more or less right now. In what sense? Because the very important fact that I didn't need as a CIO to go so into deep into the architecture and the solution construction, because considering that I have very skilled people that have done that, but the kind of solution that Microsoft, together with the partner, had the possibility to show to us was really a solution very fast, starting from our point of starting from where we started. So from our data center, because we can move on next slide, because how we move. Our VMware solution was very fast. So usually I go really into depth on the solution when we need to do a lot of choices to define how the migration will be, which are the things that we need to look when we start the migration, which is the impact on our customer. In this solution, the very important things that I didn't need to go so into depth, because was very fast to define the migration path, and even the impact on our customer was reduced to the minimum, because we just needed to advise our customers, to inform our customer that during night time we will switch to an infrastructure to another. But at the end, the day after, they will connect to the solution within our impact, without any impact on their business. So this, I think, is one of the major points that I need to underline. Our customer, in this kind of migration executive summary, with migrating almost 500 VMs per month, in 5 months, we didn't have any customer complaining for something. The solution was based on our infrastructure. The day after was based on AWS VMware solution. So this is not a transferable point on the continuity of our business. We can move on the slide. Okay. Now I really like to spend few minutes on these three final points: how we drive the innovation with this kind of solution, how we optimize cost, and last but not least, how we drive the sustainability with this kind of solution. On next slide, we will see into details the part of innovation and more relevant. We can go. Okay. Build a next-generation solution platform, use a public platform to modernize and leveraging new capabilities, increase the protection by stronger security feature and capabilities. I want to add something to these three main points that we mentioned in this slide. We really had the possibility to leverage on virtual services. Virtual services like firewalling, switch, storage. This is something that we had to previously managing internally, but after this kind of migration, all these solutions are provided as a services. The DB as a services is something that we can leverage on the monetization of our apps. So the path that now we start, the journey that now we start, is just at the beginning, because we can leverage with the new solution, new infrastructure, and virtualizing the services like previously was not possible to say. I had people dedicated to manage this kind of things that I mentioned. Even I want to add, my colleague already done at the beginning of this meeting, the Azure Rapid Response. So even the support that we have the possibility to have on this solution. So in 15 minutes, they take the ticket and the possibility to answer to our problem 24 hours per day. So this is something that for at CIO level, CEO level, and even for CFO, with an adding point that was very important. On next slide, what we had to optimize the cost and increase profitability. The shutdown of data center and get rid of the asset. The cut of IT operation and development cost. As I said, I want to expand a little bit this point because the data center and the infrastructure management is something that really need the people dedicated to this kind of work. Now I have this kind of people that have the possibility to do a more added value works, and even on network configuration, on the approval for RDA, for buying and managing storage and services. But the breakdown of any part of the infrastructure is quite transparent to our customer right now. So it's something that we need always to have as a focus, because before, if a storage or a connection or a part of server was not working well, the calls for the final customer were immediately on my table. So we had a lot of complaining in the how it was working the previous infrastructure. Nowadays, when it happens, the structure with Azure and VMware is able to move very fast on the recovery solution, or on all the things that are building on this kind of as a starting point on this solution. The other aspect is the monitoring. The monitoring dedicated to the infrastructure now is included with a partner or with AWS, and with a very low effort from my side, because I just need a person that can be called from someone else that is monitoring the infrastructure if something is not going very well. I really need to mention the leverage commercial benefit, because it's a very huge part of the business case. Why Microsoft Azure and not the other public cloud? The part of licenses is very important, because how you are able to use the reserved instance, the benefits, the hybrid benefit on licenses, and even the discount on licenses, put this kind of solution on the top for a cost perspective, even for CFO and CEO, because consider that we order of magnitude, we had another order of magnitude of spending a value of 1 million per year in order to maintain this kind of infrastructure. With the new solution, we added a little of cost, but really a little of cost, if we just compare the expenditure on infrastructure, on backup, on traffic, firewalling, and so on and so forth. But if we add all the things that we are looking in this slide, for sure the TCO is less. So we just need to build, you just need to build the correct business case. But I'm quite sure that if you have a large use of Microsoft licenses, and if you look into the future, considering the transformation of the application, so you can transform adopting the solution that the services that Azure provide to you, the business case is very easy. And that's why we just need 2 months more or less to take the decision, starting from zero. So when I decided to start this journey, we start to talk. In 2 months, we had all the information on the table to take the decision.
So Stefano, I'm just gonna pause you there, because Time is running, by the way, that's one thing. But we actually also have a question for you, which I just wanted to include that before we finalize, because you mentioned the sustainability part of this solution.
Yeah.
Can you come more into details into how you what you do in order to report this? Because you mentioned some parts about the reporting
last
on this.
slide is just on this point, so we can move even on the last slide in order to have the full answer to this part, because we leverage to public cloud to reduce our own and final customer carbon footprint, and consider that Team System is even a part of a private equity fund that is Hellman and Friedman. And so on our reporting capabilities on environment, social and governance metrics, we designed a new sustainability report for the final customer and Team System, leveraging on the point that you saw before. So this was mainly how we started to reduce to approach this aspect.
Okay, great. That's really fantastic, Stefano.
Yeah, and just to try, these were the last two slides. As I say, we need to put on the business case. We start from the in order to reduce costs and innovate, but consider even the fact that the message that we have to our customers. So starting from the point that Team System is the best for the solution for the software in Italy, for the part of architecture is not recognized as a master. But if we say to our customer, we moved on Azure with the VMware that are very best in class on their solution, our customer perceive the adding value of this kind of solution. So the communication to our customer, the optimization of the cost, and the optimization of the cost is something that we can do month by month with people that are skilled moreover in how to change our application, leveraging on cloud solution. And so this is just a starting point to transform our journey and even our application. But it's a very important starting point, because we can leverage on that, and even on applications that are very difficult to migrate on cloud, we can maintain a very high level of solution of performance to our customer, building on that solution.
Okay, I think, Stefano, I'm truly sorry, but time is actually running out now. I don't know if you have any, just a final comment, just like a short one, if possible. If you have any final comment.
Yeah, the shortest that I put. We put a lot of brain to decide this kind of solution. At the end, looking at the benefit, I think was a no-brain solution, because moving on that, it's a benefit on cost, on operation, and even on our future. So this is, I think, the best comment I can say at the end.
Okay, thank you very much, Stefano, and thank you for taking the time this morning with us virtually, live from Italy. And I'm sure we'll see you next time in if not the World Cup, then the European Cup. I'm sure we're gonna take care of you. Gonna take care of the team next time. Okay. Have a nice day, Stefano, and thank you for joining.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, so we are actually about to be done for today. It was 1.5 hours, well spent, if you ask me at least. Time was flying by. I actually just have one final question that came in from the chat. I just want to cover. It's basically about the fact on TCO calculation, cloud economics, and how to move forward from here. Obviously, if this last 1.5 hours have sparked your interest in the Azure VMware solution, I will obviously encourage you to reach out to either myself or your key account representative here in Atea. We can help you with both the TCO calculation and the cloud economic calculation, and whether this solution actually is beneficial for you or not, because it is an opportunity for many companies, but it might not be the right choice for you. But I'm pretty sure we can help you with that matter. On that note, I would like to say thank you everybody for joining this morning. It's been a pleasure for me. I hope you enjoyed the session just as much as I have, and I hope to see you next time we have a live webinar here at Atea. Thank you everybody, and have a nice day.